Hi, and welcome to another production from FreeLifeFood, where reading labels is optional. I'm the co-founder, Matt Stanley. Today's segment is about National Diabetes Week. Here in America, we are celebrating that the 11th through the 17th of June. And so I wanted to do this special Monday segment based on that because a lot of our followers and people that we're reaching out to, one of the food issues is diabetes. There are different forms of diabetes. It's not just one blanket explanation. The main types are type 1, which is insulin dependent and means you have to do shots or wear a pump that pumps insulin as you need it. And type 2 is managed through exercise, pills, stuff like that, and it's more dietary on just maintaining stuff. One big thing I want to mention is diabetes is not caused solely on weight or eating too much sugar. If you have diabetes in your genes or stuff like that, those things can increase your chances. But just because someone is overweight or eats a lot of sugar does not mean they're going to get diabetes. They have a higher risk of it or anything, but that's like saying, you'll get a heart attack for eating a hamburger or something. Your risks are higher with the higher cholesterol and fat and stuff like that in your food. You can run a higher risk as you get older of getting a heart attack. But that doesn't mean that people who eat red meat have heart attacks, always. It's bad to paint with a broad brush. Being overweight, eating a lot of sugar, or being unhealthy in general can increase those chances. I did want to go over the fact that my dad is a type 1, technically, diabetic. And I say technically because his symptoms are so extreme, they call him a brittle diabetic. Now that we're talking about my dad, I did text him and ask him if there's anything that he wanted me to present to you, the watchers. And he did text me back. And what he said was, try and read this because it came in different segments here. 1 in 3 Americans is diabetic. Only 1 in 10 will ever be diagnosed. Having your annual physical is not going to tell if you're a diabetic. That's not something they cover in just a regular physical. If you encounter a person acting incoherent, please don't assume anything. I remember when my dad was diagnosed, a lot of people started figuring out that diabetics, when they sweat sometimes, or their breath smells like alcohol. So a lot of times they were being accused of DUIs, being alcoholics, and people would judge them. And it's something in the chemical happenings in their body, and it smells like alcohol. And they could never have a drink in their body and it would smell like that. So don't assume anything. Look to see if they have a medical alert. It's really good if you have diabetes, celiac, any of that stuff, to wear a medical alert on your wrist or around your neck so that if anything ever happens and you need medical attention, they can be aware of that. Or if you're acting strange, people can see that you have some sort of issue, disease, whatever that they need to be aware of. That maybe you're going into anaphylactic shock or your blood sugar's low, whatever. So look to see if they have an alert. They may be experiencing low blood sugar. Call 911, offer assistance in whatever way suits you. If you're trained, you're a nurse who understands, you're a doctor, obviously you can do more. If you're not and you only know CPR, whatever, follow the procedures there if you choose to do that. But if you don't feel comfortable doing anything, just keep them, stable and in one spot. Call 911. But don't leave them to the hell they're in, is what he said. Because they really are. Their mind, it affects their mind when they have blood sugar swings, stuff like that. So he was diagnosed when he was 13. He'd experienced all the symptoms since birth. So he was born diabetic. his parents weren't able to accept what the doctors were saying because there was a negative stigma attached to being a diabetic when my dad was growing up. So he was born in 1960, so when he was 13, 1973 roughly, he was diagnosed, and back then stuff like that wasn't known like it is now. So there was a negative stigma to it, kind of like some of the people now are like, oh, if you're fat and eat too much sugar. And my dad was extremely healthy and into sports, so there's just this stigma that my grandparents could not accept at the time. He also says, please help to cure diabetes. Do the walk or the run in your area. The Walk for the Cure, sponsored by the American Diabetes Association. Or Google the ADA and send a contribution. Together they can stop the silent killer. So that's from my dad. Those are some of the things he wanted to go over. Again, go to the walk, go to the cure for diabetes, celiac, food allergies. We want to get awareness out to these issues. This week is all about diabetes and letting people know that, like, type 1 people, their body does not produce insulin. It doesn't matter if they're healthy or not. They have to do shots. They have to sit there and prick themselves time and time again to test their blood to see where they're at. They have to poke themselves with needles constantly. People who wear the pump have to inject a fairly large needle into their body to get that pump in there, and then they have to change that every few days. So they're constantly poking and stabbing themselves with large needles so that they can get the insulin in their body so that they don't die. I mean, this is very serious stuff, and it is super hard on them. When you do the shots, it can deteriorate the muscle, so they always have you moving around the spots where you do your shots or where you put your pump. Your fingertips can go numb from constantly testing yourself. All the stuff my dad used to go through. I was at home taking care of him when he was diagnosed on and off, and when he was diagnosed again in his 40s, his blood sugar was 1,000. And your blood sugar should be between 80 and 120. And anything over 250, you're considered, I believe, a type 1. So you really, I mean, it's like borderline up there around the 250 mark. But I'm not a doctor. Don't quote me. Just going from my memory and from what I've learned with my dad. But he was at 1,000. And they had to bring him back down to the 80 to 120 area. And to force your body to stop doing something it's done for years it was extreme. And he'd go through these blood sugar swings, 300 to 900 point blood sugar swings. And everybody, oh, you're lying, you're full of it, that's not possible. Doctors called us liars. I went through 15 doctors before he found Dr. Jennifer Hone. And she became his doctor for his diabetes, and she's been great. But we went through torture to get a doctor to listen, to help us, to figure out stuff, to get him his Lantus and get that figured out, get his A1Cs in place. It was bad. When he'd go through those swings, he would have visual and auditory hallucinations. He'd hear things, he'd see things. His mind would go blank. He went blind and was paralyzed from the waist down for almost 4 years. He was in a wheelchair, couldn't see. When he would play video games to keep his mind off it, he would literally crawl over to the TV and put his face next to the screen to see it. Now, what's even more incredible on top of that is he's colorblind. So he can't see much of the TV as it is, especially when it's got a lot of red in it. So he's against the TV, and he was doing a lot of good things even though he had all that against him. And now he walks. He can see, he's doing a lot better, but no one understands what these people are going through with the diabetes. Blood sugar swings, whether they're 5 or 10 points or hundreds of points, your mental state, your physical state changes drastically. So please send contributions. You know, go do the walk in your area, whether it's in your country or your state or your city, wherever you are. I know that Australia is celebrating it for a week in July, and the UK's got their dates as well. So get the news out there. As always, thank you for watching another Monday segment. Comment below, hit the little bell button and subscribe. Let us know what you think. As always, check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'll put links to the ADA down below. And again, thank you for watching another production from FreeLifeFood, where reading labels is optional. We'll see you on Friday.